With the launch of DC Studios, the DC Extended Universe, or as we like to call it, the DCEU, will soon be going in a whole new direction. Now, how do I know that? Well, James Gunn recently answered a question about it. When a fan on Instagram asked him about how DC Studios is going to work out, the co-CEO and filmmaker declared DC a separate entity from Warner Bros. I wonder what that means. You see, Gunn and Safran ended January with a big announcement about upcoming DCEU movies and TV shows. And even though the new universe won't start until the summer of 2025, many people are still interested in how Warner Bros. Discovery's new plan for DC Studios will work. So, how are things gonna pan out for DC Studios? Well, as of now, DC Studios is still a part of Warner Bros. Discovery, a group of media companies run by David Zaslav and a subsidiary of Warner Bros. Ever since Zaslav took over, DC has been one of the most important IPs they want to boost as part of the company's new era. And just to make things clearer, this is what happened when Warner Bros. And Discovery joined forces in 2022. Even though they just started, DC Films and DC Studios are still very different. Walter Hamada used to be in charge of DC Films, which was a smaller division that mostly made movies based on the comic book brand. But during the time of the first DCEU, DC Films were only made by Warner Bros. Pictures Group. And now, Zaslav will be in charge of DC Studios, where Gunn and Safran work under him. But the two CEOs are staying at the same level as Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi, who are now in charge of Warner Bros. Pictures Group. And in the end, after years of creative changes behind the scenes, I think DC Studios is a step in the right direction for the DCU. You see, DC Films never had control over TV, animation, or video games. So this is new territory that DC Studios can focus on as they build the DC universe. But here's the thing. As they release the first shows and movies from Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, they won't really know how it will all turn out. And in a few years, when Gunn and Safran get the DCU up and running, we'll definitely see the hard work that went into making DC Studios pay off. So what's the upcoming DCEU slate looking like? If you're wondering if Cavill is returning as Superman, Gunn has already said no to that, despite his hyped-up cameo in last year's Black Adam. And instead, a new actor will play the last son of Krypton in 2025's Superman Legacy, which Gunn is writing. So why was Cavill fired? Well, as Gunn revealed, Henry wasn't really fired, he just never got the part. That's because, for James Gunn, it comes down to who he wants to see as Superman. And for the story he's writing, Cavill doesn't really fit the part. Now, for the first chapter of the new DCU, called Gods and Monsters, we're getting a Lantern series featuring Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, Amanda Waller's spin-off series, Booster Gold, aka the greatest hero we've never heard of, and Paradise Lost, which is a sequel to Wonder Woman. Damn, I would kill to see Gunn's Booster Gold in live action. On top of this, other future DC movies include The Brave and the Bold, which is about Batman and will show the Dark Knight as Damian Wayne's father, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Swamp Thing. And according to reports, Gods and Monsters will have 2 shows and 2 movies come out yearly. Your move, Marvel. But that's not all. The DCU slate announcement is also boosting comic sales. A few days after James Gunn announced the initial plans for the DCU's Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, some of the comic books Gunn mentioned as inspiration for upcoming DC Universe movies are still on the list of best-selling graphic novels of the week at online bookstores. This includes the Batman run by Grant Morrison, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King, and All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. Also, it's very likely that these stories will help shape the tone and style of the new DCU. Something tells me Grant Morrison might be walking with full pockets in the coming days. As for the die-hard comic book fans, they'll be able to tell when a comic book inspired a movie. but it was interesting to hear James Gunn talk about the storylines inspiring the new DC universe. But it's more than just using a title like Woman of Tomorrow for the Supergirl movie. The new DC universe seems to be looking at how classic DC Comics titles like Batman and Superman portray important characters and try to bring that feeling to the screen. James Gunn did say that these movies won't necessarily be based on the comics, but that the comics will surely be a big part of the story. But as the CEOs get busy with their 10-year slate, the two heads also went on DC's official blog to talk about how Lanterns fit into the universe's main story. According to Safran, Lanterns will feature two of our favorite Lanterns, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. The show will be on HBO Max, just like all of the DC shows. And with the two Lanterns, it's more like a true detective mystery. And then Gunn pitched in, saying it'll be a mystery that takes place on Earth and fits into the overall story they're telling in all movies and TV shows. Gunn also revealed that as they find this ancient horror on Earth, these guys will be like super cops on Precinct Earth. I'm getting the shivers already. Safran then compared how the DCU story will be told across movies and TV shows to the recent DC show Peacemaker, in which John Cena played the titular anti-hero we all adore now. He said that Peacemaker is a good example of how that works, and that's what they're going to do with this big overarching story. So basically, what they were trying to say is that the Lantern series would kinda start off the new DCU as they go back and forth with their projects. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like the most exciting DC news I've ever had in a while. But this also made me think about how much we would have to wait to see the Justice League on the big screen after the chaos Zack Snyder left us with. Well, I might have a short-term solution for this. How about the DCU replaces a Justice League team-up with smaller crossovers? The thing is, the DCU characters are interesting enough to stand on their own without the rest of the Justice League. They should be explored in their own movies before they meet the other superheroes who live in their universe. And the inevitable crossover between these characters and the Justice League doesn't have to happen as soon as these characters are established, but instead, smaller team-ups with only 2 or 3 characters might be a better way for James Gunn to live up to the DCU's original vision. We already have examples of this as other successful DC shared universes, like the Arrowverse and the DC Animated Universe, started out with small crossovers that let the characters get to know each other before moving on to bigger events as time went on. And if there's one thing that the DCEU has shown, it's that a movie universe can't be rushed at all. So if the DCU wants to do significantly better than it did in the past, I think Gunn and Safran will have to start taking small steps.